Hi there. We're going to start now. My name is John Epstein. I am Senior Vice President of International Business for Sentient, and I wanted to welcome all of you here today to talk about conversions in Bloom. That's one of our titles. We're going to talk about a case study that our agency partner, Online Dialogue, did with the company Euroflorist. But in a broader sense, what this is about is really how AI could be impacting your job as a conversion optimizer, someone responsible for experimentation or testing at your organization, and using this case study as an exploration of that particular topic. Once again, my name's John Epstein. I run the international business for Ascend. It's been my privilege to work in Europe and Asia and with many partners there. We first met Ton before the launch of Sentient Ascend, which is the product that we'll be talking about in the case study. And Ton very immediately latched on to the idea of what we were working on, which was how can we use AI to both accelerate and automate experimentation in today's organization at a time when experimentation is viewed as an increasingly critical factor for corporate success. Was there a way that new technology in the field of AI could allow for much broader testing? So Ton immediately became sort of an advisor to us and provided feedback. And then over the course of several months, we were able to start work on this case study, which will be our subject today. So it is a great privilege to be here with Ton. We just came back from Conversion Hotel, which is Online Dialogue's annual conclave for conversion optimizers. If you haven't ever been there, take a look next year. I know some of our attendees were at the event. I recognize some of the names. But Ton, with that event, has really cemented his position as one of the true thought leaders in conversion optimization and one of the creators of the field. So let me ask Ton to now introduce Online Dialogue to those of you in our audience. Ton?
Yes. Thank you very much, John. Thank you for this webinar, hosting it, and this lovely introduction on me and indeed the field of AI in conversion optimization. I'm running Online Dialogue together with my business partner Bart Schuts already since 2009. We are seen as one of the fourth leading agencies in conversion optimization. We're a lighthouse agency according to Google and helping out companies throughout Europe in getting optimization done, putting experimentation in the heart of a company. Teaching them, helping them, growing their business. And indeed, like John already stated, I bumped into this tool already before it became Sentient Ascend. It was digital certainty back then, and I immediately fell in love with this solution, because to me it was the first time in many years that I've run into a solution that indeed could be a disrupting tool in the marketplace. We've seen many A/B testing solutions, but this is a different ballgame. This is not limiting your options. This is extending your options. And we are very happy at Online Dialogue that we were able to run a proof of concept at Euroflorist. And we will go into depth on that specific case study in this webinar. So thank you for joining. And looking forward for the next couple of minutes, and please do ask questions in the chat. Maybe I'll answer them directly. If they are more like a discussion topic, we'll probably take them to the last part of this webinar.
Thanks, Ton. And I'll give a little introduction to Sentient Ascend just to set the stage here, and then I'll let really Ton guide most of our content today until we get into the Q&A. And the focus, what we asked Ton to really look at is essentially, to look at questions like, when should you use AI in your organization? How is AI testing different, complementary to, adjacent to, competitive with, or whatever, versus other testing solutions? And what are the types of experiments that this new capability might open up for people to run? Ascend's tagline, our original tagline, still our favorite, is it's not A/B, it's AI. And we say that because the goal of Ascend is the same as A/B testing systems, in that we're trying to help marketers and site creators and their agencies increase the key metrics of performance for websites through experimentation, but by the use of evolutionary algorithms, which is the underlying AI technology inside of Ascend. It opens up the possibility for newer types of experimentation, specifically using this approach, which we call massively multivariate approach, you can test on the same traffic as you might use for 1 or 2 A/B tests. You can test anywhere from 8 or 10 or upwards of 40 different ideas all at once, and the AI solves not just which of those changes make a positive impact on your key metrics, but actually it solves what's the best combination of those changes to achieve a specific goal that you've set. The system looks in its experiments through what we think of as search spaces of anywhere from hundreds to even millions of potential designs. And what's really at the core of how we can do this is that evolutionary algorithms are a search technology that is modeled after natural selection that allows us to analyze what's the best out of millions of designs while only testing a few hundred. So it's a different order of affairs. The system stages generations of designs. It looks at which of those achieve the goal that you've set, the higher conversion rate, for example, and then uses the best of that any given generation to then create another generation of designs, which are then tested. So Ascend stages this evolutionary process to essentially breed the best website to achieve a specific goal. And the benefits are you can process through ideas a lot more quickly, you can be more exploratory, or you can be more granular, or you can just run more tests. The more things you test, the better the results tend to be. And when you can test this many different changes, you can really effectively test across multiple pages of a funnel. So those are some of the benefits. That's why people like Ascend. It accelerates and automates experimentation. I guess the question for Ton is, why was it interesting to you? And what was it about Euroflorist that made for a good trial for Ascend?
Yeah, of course, the trouble we always run into with running A/B tests is that you need lots of conversions, you need lots of sample size or users in your test, and you always come up to prioritizing what you think are the best IDs, and you can only run a certain set of A/B tests and not all at once. Even the large companies with lots of traffic out there have this problem. They need to prioritize their testing. And when this system was first explained to me, it was more like, okay, this system needs more inputs, and even more inputs. So it doesn't really matter how many IDs you have. Just throw this in the system, and it will find its way to the potential global maximum. And that's, of course, also the thing we run into with A/B testing, where we're learning, mostly reaching for a local maximum. So the big promise for me in this tool was, is this tool able to get to a higher local maximum, or indeed the potential global maximum in a set of combinations, a set of elements on a specific website or in a funnel? So we were very happy with Euroflorist. I have to thank Guido and also nowadays Nadine for Euroflorist to open up and try this out and have this proof of concept. So indeed they had the product champion interested in innovative testing approaches, which is something really nice to have. They're already a long-term existing e-commerce company throughout Europe in several countries, and they have countries where they have enough conversions to run a test like this. Of course, you need conversions to be able to run A/B tests. You need roughly at least the same amount of conversions to be able to run a Sentient experiment. So if you're low on traffic, then neither of them will be the solution. And of course, they already had a well-optimized website to begin with. They already run lots of A/B experiments. So the specific page we started to look at, the product page, was already quite optimized. And we were really interested to see if we were able to pull it another couple of percentages more to the top and see if the system was able to deliver results. So if you, yes, please move on. This is the Swedish website, the Swedish product page of Euroflorist. They're almost the same for every flower bouquet you can buy. They always have them in 3 types, like standard, medium, and large. Lots of info already tested on this website, like you can see the USPs over there, the green check marks, product information, pretty bright call to action button that needs to be there. So what we did at the beginning, the fun thing is if we would have run A/B tests, we probably dove in the data and dove in user testing summaries and client interviews. and come up with hypotheses, and then started prioritizing these hypotheses and pick the top one and try to run an experiment that would prove if this hypothesis could be true or not, and then based on that build further. But that needs time to analyze every single result, and then you need to build another A/B test on top of it. This beginning was different. If you click through, John, to the next one, we did indeed dove in the field of research, what we call a customer behavior study. So we looked at their web analytics. There were lots of heat maps, stream recordings. There were lots of surveys out there, feedback tools with lots of interesting insights from users. We had previous tests that were winners or insignificant tests. We dove into the field of science, looked at universal studies on why people buy flowers. And of course, we really made ourselves aware on the mission and the vision of the company and what they're trying to reach. Do they want to just sell more flowers or more expensive flowers and so on? And based on this whole study, we indeed came up with hypotheses. But the fun thing is, if you click on to the next slide, you probably see this image. This is the live board where we wrote down all the stuff we wanted to test and why and based on which hypothesis. So usually this ends up in a big list where we just take the top one. But with this experiment, we were able to put in everything we thought of. So we started to create a combination of like 8 hypotheses, 8 elements that were being influenced by this hypothesis. And in that way came up with a really large multivariate setup, a multivariate test experiment of 256 possible combinations. And I'll walk you through one by one. On the next slide, you'll see the first 2 changes we made. First is the header. The header on number 1. This is from the Dutch website. The Swedish header was quite extensive, lots of information in there. This is the changed variations of the new elements where we made it more clear, just a USP, just a phone number, because we thought there was too much info in there, so we were already exhausting users before they even started looking at the flowers themselves. At number 2, you see the change we made on the USP bar. It was originally on the bottom part of the website, so beneath the fold. And we thought the USPs were rather okay. So we said, well, why not move them up front so they first will see the USPs why they should order at Euroflorist and not one of the competitors, and then move on to selecting the specific flower bouquet they want to have. And then on the next slide, you see the third and the fourth element we changed. First one is within the USP bar. We said, well, the USPs there are maybe not motivating enough to tell people why they should choose for Euroflorist. So we changed them into new USPs based on all the research details we had from customer studies and previous tests. And on number 4, we added this progress indicator bar. And there's a little trick that we do, because once you're on the product page, it seems that you already completed one step, which is indeed true. You already selected your flowers from a long list of potential flowers you could choose from, and you'll find yourself at step number 2, and only 2 more to complete the whole progress. But we were missing this specific part. So there was no feed forward in telling what's going to happen next after I click this specific button. So that's the progress bar we added. And then 5 and 6, the pricing display. This experiment also run on the average order value. So not only trying to improve conversions, but also trying to improve the average order value. So what we changed on 5 was we still mentioned the standard price, but the medium and large bouquets were mentioned as an add-on price on top of the standard price. And in the default, it's just the price for medium or the price for large, so the full price is shown. So we thought in this way, maybe we could convince people to move more to the medium and large bouquets. And on 6, we added this call to action, or this social sentence under the call to action. Especially, there used to be product info under there, which you can see in number 7 later on, that is changed to the bottom. But we know people need an extra push, and social proof is working in this kind of cases where people are proud on what they're buying. So reminding them of other people was something we thought, well, that's really good, because potentially you're buying these flowers for other people. So remind them then that in fact there are other people also doing this. might be a good thing to add near to the call to action. And then the final two elements, 7 and 8. What we did at 7 is we swapped the image. Originally the image is on the left side, and the call to action area and the product specifications are on the right side. We swapped them because people tend to read from left to right. Not doing upfront if this was going to be the best idea, but it would be interesting to see if potentially combinations with this swapped image and sidebar we're going to outperform the default ones, because it's more focused on the product and the price and less on the image. But of course, we knew also that flowers is about emotions, so maybe it's better to have it on the left side. But potentially in the possible combinations you could create, it would be a good thing to have at least a couple of ones where the image is on the right side and not on the left side. And finally, number 8, the product info was originally placed just below the call to action, and it was really stated as a warning, like, be careful, it could be that the flowers you're finally getting at your home are not exactly the same as the ones in this picture. This is something, of course, they should add from legal perspective, but it was like really, really close to the call to action, so we placed it more below the image in this white bar to see if that had a positive impact on people converting to buying these flowers. But of course, they were also measuring and tracking if there were not more complaints coming in, which was not the case, which I can already say up front. So these were the 8 elements. And 8 elements in 2 combinations is for us just a bunch of code. So we use the Sentient Ascent system to, for every single element, create a variation, and we injected the variation with writing this code into the Sentient Ascent system. Yes, they also have this drag and drop interface and color editor and so on, but at Online Dialog, we truly believe in the fact that you have to write code yourself to have the best combination. We're doing this in every A/B testing tool out there. We always write our own lines of code to have the fastest loading times and to be pretty sure it's working correctly in any browser, which is quite important in running experiments like this. So we injected the codes. We just injected this to the Sentient system, which you can see on the next page. So there we created the 8 elements with 16 values, A and B, so 256 possible combinations. And the fun thing for me is that if you would run this as a full factorial multivariate test, you need lots and lots of traffic. You probably will need like 50 weeks, like almost a year, to be able to complete the full factorial multivariate test. And of course, there are many solutions out there already for many years, like the Gucci method, optimal design, McFadden, which is a way to run not a full factorial test, but a partly factorial, so only testing a couple of possible combinations. But I really like the evolutionary approach where you first start to find some signal in specific elements, and if there's some signal, you start combining those positive elements and grow as fast as possible to the best possible combination out there without testing every single combination. Because in the end, this test took 11 weeks to complete. We could have run it further. We only took 4 generations, so 4 back-to-back experiments with 8 possible combinations. So we had 32 combinations tested, but if we found a quite interesting uplift. And if you click to the next slide, this is the overview of the 28 combinations we tested. In the top graph, you will see the orange dots are the average conversion rate for default while this combination was running. And of course, you can see that the average conversion rate is not stable for a company like Euroflorist. It bounces between this, 39% and 32%. Which I know is quite high for an e-commerce website on a product page, but that's a good thing if you work in a company that sells flowers, because not so many people end up to just surf around and see if there's something nice. They really have the intention to buy something. So that's why these conversion percentages are so high. And the blue bars at every single dot is the conversion rate of the combination that was tested. And if the spread across the blue dots is above the orange dots, then we have a significant impact. So in this example, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 combinations that had a positive impact. So 6 out of 28. For the ones of you that know about false positives, know that this is a positive uplift. And of course, the one all the way on the right, combination 26, was the one that has the biggest uplift. And if you look at the numbers below, if you can move on, yes, thank you. If you look at the numbers below the graph, like the 3, 8, 9, 6, 11, and so on, these are the combination numbers. And how higher the number is, the newer the generation was. So here you can see also that in the final generation, where we tested number 25, 26, 27, 28, 23, 24, the system was already capable of coming up with more potential winning combinations than it was able to do in the beginning. So it takes time to learn, and then when it's starting to get what's going on, then it will find your potential winning combinations. And of course, 26 was the interesting one with the biggest uplift. And if you go on to the next slide, this is the winning combination. The winning combination had price perception change, so the added price instead of the fixed price. It had the product info bar moved below to the bottom. It had the call to action with social centers attached to it. It had the progress indicator on top and a change of the USP bar images and USP lines. So this means that adding the USP bar on top was not the best thing to do. Changing the header was also not the best thing to do. And if you click through the next one, you can see what we really changed more up close, more visible. This is the price perception element. Like I said, where we added the prices. And the next element that was also part of the winning combination. If you click on, John, thank you. This is the change of the product information box. Here you can see the warning that's now changed to this bar below. And the other element in the winning combination on the next slide is the progress bar, like I explained already at the introduction. And element number 4, that was also part of the winning combination, is the change of the USPs with text and icons instead of the green check bars. And element 5 that also made a positive impact in this combination is indeed the call to action change. So 5 of the 8 elements we changed. So swapping the image was not the best idea, but also putting the USP bar on top was not the best idea, and changing the header wasn't influencing conversions in a positive manner. And if you click on to the next slide, you can see the default. Oh, please click one through. Yes. On the left side, you can see the default. So this is the original website. On the right side, you will see the variation that come up as the winning combination. And if you would ask us up front, what do you think will the winning combination be? Then we probably will have said, okay, swapping the image, well, I'm not pretty sure about this, but well, you never know. But we will definitely have said the USPs should be on top. They should be above default. Maybe they should be changed, maybe not. Product info, well, that's quite clear. Social centers, I don't know. Price perception, I don't know. But this would definitely not be the one we would have picked as the best one that Sentient Ascent found. And that's quite interesting to us, because here you see a case where the system then is potentially better in getting the right combination of elements than we can based on our experience. And of course, what we did when we found this winner after 4 generations, the thing we wanted to do is, okay, that's all fine, but this is a system that is selling itself. It's trying to get in Euroflorist, and that's come up with a winner. We want to know for sure if this is a true winner. So we run this A/B test in a separate tool, so not being Sentient Ascent, with analytics in a separate tool, and run a proper A/B test. We knew how much impact we were looking for, so we were able to calculate the power of this test. And we wanted to have an 80% chance to be sure that we were able to find a winner if there's indeed a winner to be detected. That meant we had to run this experiment for 2 weeks. So we run this experiment for 2 weeks as a proper A/B test. And here you see the day-by-day cumulative results. The red line is the default. The green line is the light gray line is the default. The black line is the winning combination. The green line, if it's above the green line, it's above 90% significant. If it's below the red line, it is below 90%, so it's insignificant. But in this case, we saw this pretty stable uplift. And then indeed, after 2 weeks of testing in this frequentistic approach, we found out that, again, the A/B test told us the same result. Like, this combination is indeed a winning combination. It has a significant impact of by head 4.3%. On top of the existing conversion rate. So this is indeed a winner based on AI, but retested with a proper A/B testing tool to see if the system wasn't just telling us something, but indeed found something that's real. So if you click to the next slide, John, here are the detailed numbers for the ones that like statistics. So our p-value was 0.03, so there's like 96.4% significance level. Large power, even larger than we were expected up front. So yes, this is a significant result. And we can say that Sentient found a winning combination, a real winning combination on the product page of Euroflorist in Sweden. And the summary of the case is on the next one. This is again the control variation. So one more. There you go. 11-week experiment. It took 70,000 users. You know the conversion rate is pretty high, so you know the number of conversions needed. In my opinion, if you are below 10,000 conversions or transactions a month, it could be quite hard to use a system like this or use its full capabilities. If you're above 10,000 transactions or conversions per month, then you can really use the system to optimize your landing pages, product pages, or full funnel optimization. 4.3% is a pretty high impact. There's 4.3% extra sales through these product pages for Euroflorist. They're now retesting this in several countries like UK, Netherlands, Norway, and so on, because they want to launch a full template for every single country. And once this is implemented, they make lots of money based on this Sentient experiment. So we wrote a whole case study on this. There's a pretty large white paper PDF on this, which also has our thoughts in it on how, as online dialogue, we think we should apply Sentient Ascent. And to us, it's not a matter of choosing between A/B testing or running these evolutionary algorithm multivariate, massive multivariate tests. We think it's a combination of both. We still think A/B tests are really good in validating hypotheses. So you're able to get better information in the Sentient system. So far, we have not tested an experiment with Sentient Ascent with only garbage in. So far, we still believe in garbage in is garbage out. So we could tweak a couple of font sizes, we could tweak a couple of colors and just run the test and see if there's going to be a winning combination. That's something where we don't believe in. Maybe if you are really, really, really high traffic like Facebook or Amazon or LinkedIn, you can pull stunts like that. But for most e-commerce websites, we have learned along the way that you have to create elements that have a significant impact. So we think you can still use A/B testing to come up with validation of your hypothesis. And once you learned what's working or what's not, so you've created this product page or this funnel with some good elements in there, and then at some point it's time to move on from this local maximum where you find yourself to this global maximum. And finding the global maximum, to me, it's really something that is an AI task. That's something that humans were never capable of, but AI is. So if you feed the system with the right elements, it will start growing from a local maximum to a global maximum. And this could mean that you're going to add, like Euroflorist, a couple of percentage points on top of your current revenue stream, which is quite a big impact that you can make. So that's so far as we see how we could use Sentient Ascent. We can still also use it for exploration. This is more exploitation. It's more about making money. If you want to use it to learn, then you still need to do proper research up front and feed it with the right hypothesis. But it will test as combinations. So you never know for sure if one of the hypotheses is true or that it is a combination of hypotheses. But to us, it means speeding up optimization, needing less time on analytics because the system will do the work, will do the calculations. You still need design time, you still need development time. That's not automated, but it's more like always on. Once you run an A/B test, you stop, you calculate, hypothesize again, start a new test. This system can in fact be always on and just keeps on running, and you just keep on feeding it with new ideas, and it will growing further and further to the global maximum.
Hey, Ton, can you talk a bit about, thank you very much. We do have some questions that I'll be taking from the audience also, so questions noted, audience. But before we get to there, I was curious about a couple of things. One of which was the size of the experiment. In this case, we looked at 8 different, essentially, sort of A/B tests chained together for 256 combinations. Certainly, we've run a Send test where there are hundreds of thousands or millions of potential designs. How do you think about the relationship of sort of the number of ideas and the width of the individual, the number of variants per hypothesis, if you would, in designing an experiment with this kind of approach?
Well, it's a combination of the numbers you're having. So the more data you have, the more conversions you have, the more elements you can feed the system. There is some limit somewhere. But I think the system will perform better if it has more elements fed and more variations per element. But also the quality, once you start feeding the system with an unlimited number of elements, if you're going to try to test the darkness of your font type, like we have gray and some more gray and some more darker gray, the system will be capable of recognizing that this doesn't make an impact. So quite fast it will rule out these elements and not try to test them anymore that often. But you're taking up users that could have been fed to a different element, but it has a bigger impact. So there is this balance between, if you put too much garbage in the system, it will not outcompete a proper setup of A/B tests with a good team doing research. But if you don't feed it with garbage, but feed it with good stuff, then it could be faster than a team of running A/B tests.
Got it. We had a question about the ability to analyze and segment the data and the results during or after the experiment through analytics integration. And so if you can talk about, I mean, I can answer that, but also I'm curious how you used integration with analytics in your review of the experiment here.
We just hooked up Google Analytics in this case to Sentient. So we also took the data from Google Analytics. And of course, compare this with the data that Ascent was reporting on, because the system will move on to the next generation based on its own data, of course, because it's automated. But we used the analytics hookup to check on this and to understand what's happening, which is quite fascinating. But in your own analytics tool, then you can segment anything you want to. So if you want to look at all the combinations that had element 4 in the B variation compared to all the combinations that element 3 in the B variation, that's stuff you can do. But I think this more and more will be automated by Sentient. So far, it's not telling me about all these detailed insights, so they're still done by hand. But of course, it makes sense to automate this stuff. And the same question is also on experiments in several countries. Yes, we did. We also run in Norway and the Netherlands, but we found out that those countries had not enough traffic to find enough signal to find winning combinations. So we also learned that if you're really low on traffic, then it's the same for A/B testing. If you're too low on traffic, the only A/B tests that make an impact are like really, really big impact A/B tests, and they don't happen that often. So with Sweden, we were lucky to have enough conversions in the tests, and that's a big country for Euroflorist. So I cannot tell anything on the cultural differences. We saw some signals, but these were non-significant. But we learned from other clients that yes, there are cultural differences. So if your IT is capable of running individualized, so geographical targeted websites next to each other, then that's a wise thing to do and optimize for each specific country. If your IT only wants to have one template for every country, well, then don't start testing on these geographical things, and make sure you have the best template for everyone. And Renee is asking, yes, true, this one is not implemented yet in Sweden. Why? Because they have the case that they need this template for every country. So they're retesting this in the UK now, which is a pretty big country for Euroflorist. And they want to be sure if they implemented this throughout Europe that it will have a positive impact altogether, and not only on Sweden, because if it has a negative impact on all the other countries besides Sweden, then they don't have the right business case. So that's why it's not live yet.
So one question that came in was about the length of the test, and just to cover off on some of the points raised by our audience. This was a longer than normal test. I would say most Ascend experiments sit between they're either 4, 6, or 8 weeks. In this case, it's we aim sort of low down in the funnel and realize that after the fact. But do you think if tests do run long, because if you have a really large search space, it can take 8 weeks. Is there a risk of cookies, or is that the same as it is with A/B testing, sort of a built-in?
Well, what we always do with A/B tests, we only run them for like 1, 2, or 3, or max 4 weeks because of all these cookie deletion issues. Mm-hmm. And even if you have logged in users, or you are really able to identify users, then you don't want to have experiments running 6 or 7 weeks in one A/B test, because it just takes too long time, and you probably are not able to create enough business value from that experiment. So for us, 4 weeks is the max. And this specific Sentient experiment took 11 weeks, but it has 4 generations. So you can see it as 4 pretty large A/B tests built back to back. So on average, every A/B test took 2 weeks and a couple of days to run. And because every time a new generation starts, you can see this as a new A/B test. So if you want to translate this Sentient stuff to what you're doing with A/B testing, you've run 4 pretty large A/B experiments back to back, and every time it was a new experiment, so you won't run into these cookie issues. Of course, it would still mean that someone that found himself in the first generation, in like the first 2 weeks, has deleted their cookies in the 6 weeks in between, and then in week 9 they return the experiment, and they will find themselves in a different combination. So there is some pollution, but then if there's so much time in between those, that probably will have less impact. Something we don't know, of course, but the thing we know that all this pollution stuff is always causing the fact that the variants, so the combinations, in the reports are seen as less impactful than they are in real life. So for us, it only starts becoming a problem if we don't find enough winning combinations or winning experiments. If we still find winners, they probably even have a bigger impact once we implement them because of all these pollution issues.
Could you talk about, let's say that we're working with a larger site than Euroflorist, and you have the ability to test, to put in 20 or 30 or even 40 different variants into the system. How do you think about using that additional capacity? Would you tend to go wider and provide maybe 4 headlines and 4 images instead of just a single alternate? Would you do more individual hypotheses, sort of move further down the original A/B list? Would you be more granular? Would you be sort of more granular than you might normally have?
This is, of course, hypothetically, because the number of experiments we run, we haven't run like 25 Sentient experiments yet on Sentient. But if I would have a couple of clients that want to test this system, the 2 things I would do is, or even 3, one is feed it with more elements. But at some point you are limited in what your framework can do, because every potential combination should look nice for the user. So at some point you're out of elements, and then you go deeper. So then indeed you have like 4 different types of sentences beneath the call to action, or even 2 sentences combined. But the thing I probably will put the most faith in is do this on a funnel. So, okay, we take this product page, we take step 1 and step 2 from the checkout funnel. We will have the same hypothesis for all the steps in this funnel, and we will come up with elements that will be based on this hypothesis to learn if the combination of winning elements throughout that funnel is based on specific hypothesis, or is it a combination from hypothesis. So, so if you have the traffic, I will like max out the number of elements, then go in depth and spread it out on several pages. And then tweak as fast as possible, because I think most A/B tests are nowadays still limited on only single page optimization. And in fact, the users having this customer journey, this experience that goes on different pages back to back. So I think we should optimize the journey. So to be able to run this at a client that has enough traffic to indeed grow to 1 million possible designs, I would surely do this, for sure do this on more steps in the funnel.
What are some of the things you think people need to be reassured about in using a new method like AI? I mean, certainly people are familiar with, traditional statistical testing, A/B testing, how it works, and the workflow from that. As you talk to clients about these new ways, what are some of the things that some of the questions they have that you need to answer to make them feel comfortable with this new approach?
They should let go of trying to understand how the algorithm is behaving, which is a big challenge. It was a big challenge for us because we want to understand what the system is doing. But being able to A/B test the winning combination and indeed learn that, again, it has significant impact is something that helped us a lot in believing in the system. So that's something you can build in once you start using it. I think with every new thing out there, every step we take towards more AI-based optimization, you can just wait and see what the competition is doing, or you can dive in, and if it's working for you, you will outgrow the competition. But if you don't dive in, there's one thing you know for sure: if one of your competitors dives in and is able to use the system to grow, then you're doomed. So, and if I look in the future, in 7 years from now, the shortage on analytics people, the shortage on data scientists, even the shortage on behavioral experts, it's going to be bigger and bigger. So if you can automate stuff, please do so, because you will not find the people that will do this for you. So, to my opinion, this is the way to the future, and where you should invest money in to keep on being able to outgrow your competition.
Excellent. Just want to see if there are other questions from the audience. If not, we have some others we can ask, but I wanted to encourage the audience to throw in some questions. While we're doing that, I'm curious, Ton, in terms of, the first order of business for conversion, teams appears to be, and yes, we will share the presentation, appears to be to increase critical KPIs, but of course an underlying function is to learn about what's working and to be able to build a repeatable platform for experimentation and sort of a base of hypothesis knowledge. So are you able to learn when you're moving tests as quickly as Ascend does and doing this sort of larger multivariate approach? Are you still able to preserve the learnings about individual elements and what works?
That's an interesting, good, and fascinating question at the same time. It depends a lot on the size of your company. I think that if you indeed have 10,000 plus transactions or conversions per month, this probably means you're not going to have just one conversion optimization specialist in your company. You probably will have a team, and a team that's running several experiments, nowadays A/B testing experiments per month. And part of this team job is doing research, user research, data research, come up with insights, because most hypotheses can already be proven true just based on the data you already have. They won't have to be validated apologies, by running experiments. So I think that the research is a real valuable part. So you set up proper hypothesis. Then if you run an A/B test, you probably will learn more direct if this hypothesis is true, but it will cost you several experiments to really know if the hypothesis is true. And that's, of course, it's going to take lots of resources, lots of time, lots of testing potential. So at what point is learning becoming too expensive, and is it more about earning? So I think the Sentient platform for now is more into earning, and maybe less into learning, but I think learning to just A/B experiments is quite expensive. So you should really use as learning for long-term impact in your company. But I know what's on the product roadmap. We all know that the ideal website is not the same for every specific user segment. We all have learned from past A/B experiments that new users behave differently than returning users, and that people that came in through AdWords are behaving differently than the ones that just typed in your domain name. So in the end, we will end up with having not the same website for every single user. And I know on the roadmap there's this auto segmenting stuff. The Sentient will be able to recognize specific user segments and be able to optimize winning combinations to a specific segment without having set the segments up front. So just based on the data it's collecting. And that's quite fascinating to me, because if you are able to hit that, then you will take the step that also learning becomes really interesting in a way that's not, you're not capable of doing this by hand, because it just takes too much time. So at this moment in time, I would say a really good A/B testing team with the right resources, the right mindset, the right user study up front will be probably better in learning and creating a long-term impact with just A/B tests than the Sentient system does now. But the Sentient system with less focus on learning will probably now bring you more money. And if the add-ons will come live, well, it becomes a really interesting competitor in the learning field too.
Yes. Well, very good. Earning before learning, I think I heard you say this last weekend.
Yeah.
But we hope to have the learning as well, and accelerate that kind of learning. So what type of companies do you think should try this, and why should they try this? Like, who is this? If the benefit of AI testing is to really open up the test capacity and allow you to test many more ideas at once, and accelerate, sort of compress and accelerate through a testing cycle and get the results from that. What types of companies do you think should try this, who shouldn't, and why should they try it, in your opinion, as an expert?
Everyone with lots of conversions, leads, or transactions. So that's e-commerce, travel, lead generation, publishing, subscriptions, telecom, energy, insurance, banks, many out there, because you can use it for advertising, so you can optimize your display stuff, your landing pages, product orientation, product pages, funnel. So if you just have those 10,000 transactions or conversions or leads per month or more, this is the system you can use. If you're below, then the system will probably not give the best ROI. But then again, that will be the same for A/B testing. You won't have enough traffic to do proper A/B testing on a high scale. So will never become part of the DNA of your company. So then there are more solutions to optimize your website if you're on low traffic. But if you're on high traffic and high conversions, to me, this is something you should try before your competition does.
Well, here we agree with that. And Ton, thanks for mentioning our auto segmentation work. We are now in closed beta tests on auto segmentation, which will indeed generate personalized web pages from the design components it's given to work with, based to produce the design that's most effective for any given user, based on the signals we're told to look at. So it is a very exciting development, and we plan to take these optimization paradigms, the use of evolution as an optimizer, and extend them beyond the web page and the landing page, where they're very useful now, but into over time the world of email, the world of advertising, creative. We've done some very exciting proof of concepts in ad tech. So you'll be seeing a lot more from Sentient on that front. I think we've covered a lot of stuff. Are there any other questions from the audience?
I'll have one. The experiment we still would like to run at Online Dialogue is that we take a real high traffic website with lots of conversions and split it into maybe 2 or maybe 3 parts, but let's start with 2. Like, okay, we have Sentient Ascent, where our team, together with the product team from the client, We'll have a really good research up front, come up with really good hypothesis and feed the system with really good input. And on the other hand, we will create this team that does no research up front, just comes up with things they can click on and create an experiment to see what the result of that competition will be. And maybe we need a third part of the traffic too, to run a series of A/B tests of just implementations or growth hacking style, to have a real fun competition to see the capabilities of the system with garbage in, capabilities of the system with value in, and the old solutions like we're working now. And that would be really a fun contest. So we need a company with lots of traffic and some fun budget to play around with. And the backside of it is you probably will make some money and you probably will get lots of PR from it. So if you are within that company or know that company, please step forward and say, here I am.
Yeah, let us know. And we are also looking for some additional auto segmentation trials. So there again, we're looking for a sizable amount of traffic. And the experiment we want to run there is to run a send with auto segmentation and then run a send also without auto segmentation to half the audience so that we can see the kinds of uplift or what kind of uplift we get when we're able to personalize based on the creation of a neural network, the individual designs to the user. So encourage any of you out there listening that are interested to contact Ton about such a trial or ourselves. And if there's no further ado, I wanted to thank you very much, Mr. Wesseling. Always a pleasure. Let's go to the final slide and get you some contact information. For folks that want to learn more about Ascend, please visit our website or send us an email to ascend@sentient.ai, and then with Ton's domain and email are there, and his Twitter tag. And of course, you can read more about.
Yeah, if you have a quick question, just shoot me the question on Twitter. You have this limit on 100, nowadays 280 characters, so I can give you a fast reply. And I think you guys, John, are going to send out the slides, the case study PDF, and probably the video recording of the webinar to all the attendees.
That's absolutely correct.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, thanks, everyone, and have a great day. And remember, it's not AB, it's AI. Put Ascend to the test, and we look forward to speaking with all of you. Thank you so much.
Cheers.